All right, we're back at it again with another breakdown or a look at a snippet of a breakdown. This is from Collateral Beauty, and I think I mentioned it multiple times in this breakdown. This was the first film that was shot on the Master Anamorphics when they first came out. And the only reason that's important is because never before had you been able to go so shallow on anamorphics and still be able to be so sharp. And I think they really embraced it. Not to mention just the sheer size of the close-ups. Everything in this film is played very, very tight, and that has some distinct advantages in terms of lighting and locations and what you can do. Also, the fact that you can be tight and wide open at a 1.9, you can be very, very flexible about where the light comes from because you only have to deal with a very small area. So it's something to think about. If you have budget issues or if you have location issues, you might want to offer up a suggestion for playing things a little bit tighter because you can be that much more controlled and you can sort of dictate where the audience is looking inside of the space because that field of view is so much narrower. So that is what we're looking at today. But in that idea or in this concept that the film goes through, we're looking at a very specific situation that will arise time and time again, which is you're going to be in an area where there is shade and where there is sun, and you're going to be able to choose where do we want the action to play out, and why would we want it in sun versus why we would want it in shadow, and what are some of the benefits versus some of the downsides. And that's what we go over here. And spoiler alert, it's always a little bit easier from a control point of view. I guess that's what I mean when I say easier. I mean, I want as much control as I can possibly get every single scene, because I think I can make things more three-dimensional, more depth, if I have more control. So I'm always looking to maximize my control with the least amount of rigging, the least amount of equipment, the least amount of work, because I know even if you have ample crew, even if you've got ample time, there's always going to be things that will be just too much, a little bit too far beyond, right? You're never going to be 100% satisfied. So I want to knock as many things out early on as I can, like give me the best starting position, so then I can build from there and hopefully be able to do it within the schedule and within the budget limitations based on whatever project you are working on. So that is the specific component we're looking at today, sun or shade. And if you choose shade, what are the elements that you need to have on standby, or what are the things you need to lean into to get the maximum benefit from that decision? So with that being said, let's get into this little snippet of a breakdown of Collateral Beauty. Okay, this is a good scene because we actually did this in the feature film that I shot. We actually did a scene almost identical to this, not in the context, but in the Steadicam, in the relationship to the sun. And we made this choice not because of this movie, but for the same reasons I am sure that they made this choice, right? Because you have some options here, right? This is not, you wouldn't typically go for this option, right? Because you can see the sun is over here, right? It's over here going this way, which means they're in shade. So in the foreground, we know the problems that we are going to have are much like an overcast day, right? It's going to be really, really flat, and that is not good. Also not good that we are going to be really flat and we're going to be competing with a very extremely hot background, right? This is going to be way more over than it is right here. So we need solutions. What are we going to do? Why don't we wait until the sun is over here, right? Depending on how the location is situated, right? This place is going to be different than what we were shooting in. But we had the option. We could have shot when the sun was over here blasting this way, right? Which would have been your more backy light. But it would have created a host of other problems with our schedule and moving around. So we had to say, okay, what can we do when we have to shoot with the sun behind the buildings this way? How can we mitigate it, right? Well, it all comes down to timing, right? And the thing to watch here, and the thing to remember, is watch this line of sun that is in the background, right? You can see it here, which is easy. But as the scene progresses, watch how it jumps around and why choose this particular time to do this part of the scene. Number one, I mean, it's kind of a weird frame. I guess they're doing this because they got the cool bridge in the background, that they have this weird framing where they're quite small, just like my pen is. And let's get that back. So they're quite small in the frame, so we want to see this big background. We see the building that they come out of. This is all nice, right? And you have variance inside the frame. You got the red building, you got the slash in the background, the bridge running across. It's a cool frame. And then this is really hot. And this is what you would be worried about if you were the cinematographer. You'd be sitting there going, ooh, it's going to be really, really hot. But if we go back, let's go back to the start. So again, because we're in the shade, the actual shape of the light, we don't really have to worry about that too much, because we know it's just going to be a big soft light, because we're getting all this, basically the whole sky turns into a giant softbox, So we're going to be getting that soft light, but how do we get shape is the question, not how do we get the harshness off of the face. So we come here, okay. She's going to come on the inside. Yep, she's not going to the outside, which we'll see why in a second. And in this one, now, my guess as to why they would, let's go a little bit further in the scene. I'll show you. My guess why they have the framing the way that they do. And it gets a little bit more centered as we start to get going. Right there. Is probably, is this the best spot to see it? Yes. Let's see, go back. You probably see it on Edward Norton right there. Oop. Let's walk it right there. Okay. Now, if you notice the line in the background as they walk along, it basically stops right at Edward Norton's head. So if he was to step out that far, like if he was over here now, he would be getting hit in the head with a top light, right? But we don't want to get him hit in the head with the top light. What we want to do is we want to make this line as close as we can to their walking line without hitting him, so that we can take a walking bounce and we can project all of this light back, bounce all of this light back in, and that gets us this shape, right? Because she is basically becoming his neg, right? She's sucking up all the light on this side, and we're getting bounce from the sun this way. So technically, it's like backlit without the backlight, because it's an over-the-top backlight. So we're using that same bounce to return this way, which gets us this shape. Because without that, we would be too far under, right? We wouldn't have enough level. So to get some shape, let's put a walking bounce over here. Let's get an 8x8 of ultra bounce, and 2 people can walk with it. And that's how you get this return over here. Also plays into our framing because they're over there, right? Imagine if they were over here, right? Well, now the bounce has to be 10 feet further away, or else it's going to be in the shot, and we're going to lose all that level because it's further away, right? So it's going to be in shot, and you're not going to get as much level out of it. So frame them a little bit to the right. And then as we come down, what's going to happen? Now she doesn't loop around him. He loops around her, right? Because we're going to set her up for her light, which is this walking bounce that is over here. Where are you, walking bounce? Where are you, walking bounce? Stop. See how he turns? Now we've got perfect. We're on the dark side of the line. We're shooting into the light, the upstage key, even if there isn't a walking bounce over here, right? Even if you're going to do everything in the grade, you're still setting yourself up for the shadow side, right? So just the action that the actors are doing has an effect on where you're going to position the camera, right? If she loops around, that changes the lighting that we're going to see in the next angle, right? It makes it harsher for her. So let's make it harsher for him. So we go from here, and right, look, like this is the exact opposite of what you would normally do for a frameworky shot, because we have so much level in the background. There's level everywhere, and we're just pulling out, I mean, we are just making it to make her the hottest thing in the image, right? We've had to pull this in post. They have pulled these highlights way down, way down. This has been really pulled, all right? And this is the advantage of being, I don't know if this was shot on the Alexa, I have to imagine it was, but this is the advantage of having extreme dynamic range. You can do this and not make it feel too funky, but this is a hard scene on the camera, on the sensor. Okay, as we come in, what happens? Goosh. We go to, again, difficult scene because now we're front lighting everything back here, but we're gonna do the exact same thing where we're gonna bounce from this side in this way, and then we're gonna neg this side, and there's no little leak here. This is just ambient sort of day, but there's definitely neg in here. And we'll see it progress as we get closer because it follows that same breakdown as almost every other scene. So there, now has her light changed, right? We've gone from that look, remember that face, to that one. Okay, now you can see it in the eyeball, right? You can see the actual bounce there. But nice on him too, you can see how hot it is right there. And for the person in the foreground, normally you're gonna get so much heat off of the bounce that you're gonna have to net them down, right? This is something to look out for. If you bounce too close and you have an overshot like this, you're gonna have to net the back of the person so it doesn't feel like the light is coming out of nowhere. So then all we're doing here is, again, trying to get that key level up so that we can balance it with the background, because we have to set everything to the background here. This is the point of control, this background. We cannot control it. We have to balance everything to it, which means we then have to choose the bounce material to get us enough level. If you really like bleached muslin, That doesn't give you as much kick as ultra bounce. So if you try bleach muslin and you're a stop under, well, then you're gonna have to get out the ultra bounce, right? You have to conform to whatever that background is giving you. Now this is a beautiful frame, right? Because now we don't have too much, we got a little bit of the hot building, but because this darkness is soaking it all up, plus this darkness behind her head, plus this little highlight over here, this is just a good looking frame, right? And we've gotten enough level. We're a little bit below the eye line, which again is where I like it. Chase down, turn, and still got the highlights in the eyes. Now there's a little bit more edge in this one, right? Feel this back here? This is a little bit more like we're letting something in. Then we've got the neg. Now this is not as good of a frame. Still, it helps to be broken up with this dark hair. And you can actually see, again, the bounce in her hair. But this is against a really, really hot area with not much in the background to break things up. You can see the highlight too on him. And the darkness on the chin. Yes, play it out. I mean, this is simple coverage played really tight. And this isn't even, we haven't even gone to full face mode yet. But this is the entire movie. So if you don't have lots of money, there it is. Boom, we've gone tighter. I think we even go tighter. There it is, tighter, right? We just keep on getting closer. And then what will happen as we get closer, right? The tension builds in the scene, and then we bump back out to exactly where we started. We just bump out as the scene sort of progresses. So highlight there, and look up, boom, highlight. Even highlight like looks like over the camera, right? Looks like here there's either some sort of bounce or some sort of reflection, or that's just the sky, right? Because that little black area in her eyeball is him, so that could just be sky there. But definitely some shape from over here, and just keeping that shoulder to keep it interesting. And I've done that with the pen again. And again, notice where we are on the shoulder. I like this look better because number one, it opens you up to this gap, right? This gap of darkness in the neck. You're not looking down and just flattening things off. It makes it a little bit nicer. And then just how shallow it is. They're floating in a blob of nothingness. I like, now that, see. Okay, see how it's underneath the eye? Like that shows you that somebody is sitting there holding the poly like this, or holding whatever bounce it is, or they're trying to get maximum return, which could be too because the background is front lit. You're not going to get as much bounce going Edward Norton's way, right? You can imagine if you're there on set on the day, if the light is going that way and you want to bounce light this way towards Edward Norton, you're going to have to angle the bounce, right? So the sun is over here in the scene. For Keira Knightley here, we can just have the bounce flat to the sun, right? Boom, and then we get lots of return back this way. For Edward Norton, we need to place the bounce at the opposite angle, like just enough to hit it and then bounce. So that's probably why they start to go under with it, just to get that little bit more level to get rid of these bags underneath the eyes. But it's a hard play, and that's probably why we stick Ed there in the first place. Ed, like we're buddies. You stick him there in the first place, as opposed to having her turn or having the conversation go differently at the beginning, right? That changes the whole dynamic of where we place people. And if we're going to place people for the light, again, this is one of those things where maybe this doesn't come up. If you're the director of photography, maybe you miss this bit during the blocking, or there's a question, does it matter? Not really. Maybe the director, it really matters that it's the other way around. And your 2 cents is, well, she's going to look way better if we have her on this side as opposed to Ed's side. And then maybe the director goes, oh yeah, I don't care. And then you have to come up with a fix. But those are the kinds of moments you'd be chiming in. Even there's like a little digital zoom. Look at how far over he is too. Again, like a little digital creep, and it almost feels like it's stabilized. And we are in almost full face mode here. Lots and lots of talking this entire scene. Talking. And then we're back out to where we started, right? But his angle, and we cut to the big wide. Now, when we cut to the big wide, everything is in, we completely lost our shadow back here, right? So either they've been talking for 45 minutes, or the sun is lower in the sky, so we're not getting near the shadow that we were getting before. And if you look at the ground, notice how you can't see the ground in this frame, right? That's probably because it's all in shadow, right? Where all of these trees were getting hit before in the background, here, none of the trees getting hit, right? All these in shadow. Easier to balance. right? Because this ends up being your hottest part of the image, significantly easier to balance, right? Don't show the ground, basically, is how you get away with that. All right, that's going to do our look here at the snippet from Collateral Beauty. If you want to see the rest of this breakdown or the hundreds of others that are out there, you can go to the Patreon site. The link is in the description below. You can support the podcast and the channel itself, so I can start to maybe lean into doing more commercial breakdowns. I don't know. I'll probably do some question and answers, maybe switch up the YouTube videos just a little bit to keep things fresh and interesting, because I know there are different types of people that watch the YouTube channel than consume the podcast. And we're looking to be valuable by solving questions that you might have. So if you have questions, leave them in the comments below. I'll try and get to them maybe in a future Q&A video, or just mix up some of the breakdowns. Rather than doing feature films, maybe do some commercials in the future. We will see. Either way, many thanks for checking out the video, and we will see you in the next one. Goodbye.